Alright, so I drew a diagram of where all of the trailer cross braces were. And as you can see, I measured off the very front edge, 17 1/8, 16 and 11/16. That was probably the worst one that was crooked. 11/16, 5/8, that's a 16th. But this one here was an eighth plus 5/16, so 2/16, 7/16, almost a half inch. This one was in crooked, and that's what the tongue was attached to. And it was square on it originally, so that original tongue stuck out over that way. Oh, Lord. So, anyhow, 56 3/4, 56 1/2, quarter inch off, 76 3/4. Now, I measured the back on that one, and 76 3/4. The back was actually good. We did have one small problem. Because the gate goes on there, there will be rotational forces on this when you drive up the trailer gate onto the platform. I thought it would be a good idea to put not one, but two padding welds or two reinforcing welds over top of the original weld. And what I managed to do was there's a slight bow in it right here, right there at that line, and it bows in, and that's because I didn't have my other stuff tacked in place like it was supposed to be. But that's okay, because we have the bottle jack and a piece of metal, actually a piece of lumber that'll fit in there that's wider than the tubing, and so is the base of the bottle jack. Now the little bottle jack, the base is not as big as the tubing, so I opted for the bigger bottle jack to try to tweak that. It was 3/16 pull on the inside. Now let me show you why it pulled right where it did. These original pieces of tubing occasionally had a piece of angle iron welded to the side of them like that. And lo and behold, if you look, it pulled right where I cut one off. You see the little angle grinder marks right there? That's where I was trying to cut underneath of the weld that was on there, and I got a little too ambitious. So, yeah, we're going to have to bottle jack that out. But, you'll notice there's a black line here, and there's a black line right there, and there's one there, and that's the front of the trailer. Now, there should be another one right here in the middle, but let me zoom out. There should be another one between this one and that one, but that is not going in yet, because what we got is the trailer spacing based on what we had originally. I had to mark everything else out. Now, you remember I said this is 1.5 inch tubing. The original stuff was 2 inches. And this is 1.5 inches. So we've lost a 1/2 inch on the inside dimension. And the spring perches are 2 1/4 inches wide. So that means that 3/4 of an inch of that spring perch is going to be hanging out over here into space doing nothing. I don't like that. So I was going to take and reinforce a piece of box tubing down the inside from this bracket here to this bracket here, which, yeah, there you go. The sun just came out. So this is going to be the back side of it that it welds to, and it'll go all the way up here. And what we had here was 47 3/8 to spring perch here at the front, and it was 71 1/4. Now you notice it's 71 1/8 on one side, 47 1/4 on the other side. Notice 1/8 inch off and 1/8 inch off, and those were setting originally. The original axle was setting off to the side, so this side was one side of the trailer. The spring perch was actually underneath the rail, and on the other side it was jutting way out about a 1/2 inch past it, but the spring perch was on flush on both sides, and it was wearing a terrible groove in the spring perch. and I can show y'all. And the spring perch had been, or the slipper part of the spring perch had been welded on upside down, because you want the point with the most contact, not the point with the least contact, or something like that. I don't know. I just, that's just what I read. So anyhow, that all said, I have moved, because we've increased the length of the original tongue. See, here's the original tongue. That is 48 inches from that end right there to this end right here, and then the ball mount attached. And we have the original tongue went from the trailer right here at the front and attached on the first cross member. Now, because this trailer was so rickety and wobbly, our original design was just come in here and cut a slot in that cross member here and go back here. And that was when I started trying to measure things, and everything was off center like you wouldn't believe. And that's because there was the whatever 17 1/8. It was the 5/8. That's 5/16. That's a 2/16, 7/16, half inch off on that original cross member. 7/16 is close enough to a half inch. All right, so what I did is, with our extra tubing here, now what we also had was a problem with the backing. Now the backing up problem was also because of the axle being put on crooked and the tongue being on crooked. And what you got to do is you measure from your spring perches to the exact same spot on the tongue, and you get them so they're the exact same length. No matter what you do, it should be the exact same length. It's a triangle, an equilateral triangle, based on the center of this tongue being exactly where you want it. And they didn't have that. So I'm going to go with our new design, and I'm going to attach, not on the first spot, but on the second one back, and hopefully that'll give a little more carry pull into the trailer. And then I'm going to come from here and weld up cross braces from here to the corner there, and from the thing there to the corner, or to the tongue there, right in the center. And hopefully that'll take all the weeble wobble out of it. And that was the original idea. Just add those 3 pieces of metal, the corners, the corner to the tongue, and then change the tongue back to here. And I was just trying to make my dad's trailer functional. Oh, and I had to fix the floor, which is 4 pieces of metal. So anyhow, and this is where we're at, adding 4 pieces of metal. Life does that to you sometimes, but I'd rather give him a product we can keep forever, or he can keep forever, than to give him something he has to throw away. I'm sorry, I just can't do that to my dad. I got this stuff for next to nothing. And he was complaining that the original trailer didn't have enough ground clearance, and it was sitting on his back of his truck up to the bumper like that. So the longer tongue will help decrease some of that angle, because it's longer, you know, and it's a more gentle slope. You know, you increase the base distance, and then that means the hypotenuse or whatever will be at a longer angle here. It'll be a lower angle, and it'll be a longer piece of metal, because the distance to the hitch is still the same no matter how you go about it. All right, so we got that, right? Right. All right, so what I got is a brand new piece of 3/16 is going to run across from right here to right there. All right, because the original one, this one, and that piece of metal there were both bowed and bent and had welding damage on them. Now, I turned this one, hopefully I've turned this one, it had minimal damage compared to the second one. That was the one that was on the, across the front, no. That was the one that was across the front to begin with. Went across right there. And it had an arch in it from when they bent the trailer. And because they managed to get whatever that heavy piece of equipment was on it and bend it, and it flexed the trailer around that center point and down on both sides of it. Actually, that was the original one, and I managed to straighten it enough. That was the straightest one of the 2 of them. And this was where the original hitch connected, that one. Okay, so that one is going to go back right here in the middle. after I add my braces. Now, the problem we're occurring with, or having happen right now, I need to cut that piece of 3/16 2x2 to go from here to here, and I have to have the tubing go this way. Now, the 3/16 needs to have the flat on the front so I can attach the new hitch, and then it has to go from the front here towards the back. But I want that tubing to come all the way right to the back edge of it, right here, right? So I'll be 3/16 shy of, and I want it to go from right there to the black mark that's right there. Now you see a minute ago the sun was shining on there and now it's gone. I've talked for that long. Okay, so it's 3/16 shy though of 38 inches. All right, so go to there to there. So that gives us our box length of the reinforcement I'm going to put on the inside, which is another piece of the box tubing, that piece right there. And we're going to go from there to there. And I have to notch the top for that 3/16 to go in there and sit in there flat. And then you just tack weld the top and bottom all the way down the length of it. That's what they said. They said you ain't even got to weld a side of it, just stitch weld it all the way down. And that's what I think I'm going to do. It'll probably allow the most amount of water to pass through instead of holding dirt and debris and everything in there. But no matter what you do, it's going to do that. It's going to get in there anyway. So I got to paint it before I put them together, give it at least a little bit of protection. I'm going to put some automotive primer on there and see what my rattle cans can do. But I have to prepare these two pieces of tubing, one on each side. And I have to prepare a cross member here. And what are we going to do for this one is I bought 2 extra pieces of angle iron. Now my dad didn't understand what I was talking about when he ordered the stuff, and he ordered the 48-inch. These cut 48 inches. He thought I wanted 3/16 to go from the new hitch location to the corner up here at the tongue. You know, the cross bracing or whatever, and that's not what I needed. But that's okay, because we're going to use it in another way. We're going to take this 3/16 2x2, and we're going to put that on weld number 1, and we're going to take that and attach it to the tongue. But we need to have the tongue in before we can do that. So what I got to do, I got to put in this cross member here and the box tubings before I can put in that one back there, because I'm going to slam this one, the one on the back here, I'm going to slam it up against the end of the box tubing and weld it in place. And I should actually probably weld that piece to the box tubing and then stick it in, I guess you would say. You know, put the whole thing down in as one little separate box, its own thing, all welded together nice and neat, because I wanted to weld the inside of that box tubing to the cross members. And you can weld up and down on this stuff, but you don't want to weld across the channel, the main tubing itself. That's where the stress points are, especially on the bottom rail. So you can stitch weld down the length of it. You can stitch weld on the sides of it. Try not to go all the way top to bottom, is what the things were saying. Interweb was saying. We'll figure out. I might be full of it. And anyhow, that's what I was reading. It was a couple engineers or whatever that made this website. So I'm going to trust a couple engineers. They gave the engineers calculators and stuff like that. So it looked like they did their research. All right. So if nothing, they did their research. It looked good to me. I don't know. So I should attach that one as well to the tubing. And that makes it harder to put the jack on there and hammer it all down into place, because, yeah, I'm just a glutton for punishment, I guess. But that's okay. I don't mind it. I don't mind. And I'll put these in, and I got this set up here to go ahead and cut it. Now, I know the dimension right here from this side, the inside of that rail to the inside of that rail should be 57 1/2. It's 60 1/2 on the outside. So it should be, because it's perfectly 1.5 inch tubing. It should be 57 1/2. You know, 1.5 plus 1.5 is 3. from 60.5 is 57.5. So they should be exactly 57.5 inches long. Now, if I go and measure that tubing and put it in here, well, the reason I was doing it as a little box frame all on its own and then setting it down into place is I can make it stronger by welding the box tube on the outside where it's already touching the frame rail against that rail when I stick it down in there. And I'll show you all that when I get to it. It'll be kind of like the situation right here on the end where I welded this box tubing right here, right? I welded this tubing to this tubing. All right, so that's what I was doing. Only it's going to be inside the frame where I can never reach it. And I figured the best way to get that to attach is to do it right now before it's touching the frame on the inside and buried where I can't ever get to it to actually tack it together. I might be messing up. I might be messing up bad. But we're going to give it a try. All right. So, I made my own independent suspension box. And I'm going to set my stuff up. And we're going to cut that to fit the inside of this thing. The inside of the frame here. And then we're going to figure out where to go from there. All right. I'll see y'all in a couple minutes.